Local history, local culture, local events, your community. This is the Joe Kelly Show.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Brad Velardi is our guest. Brad is with Greater Utica Magazine, and we're going to be talking about some of the recent articles they've had in Greater Utica Magazine, and we're also going to be talking about their new online presence. But before we do any of that, we're going to say welcome. Good to see you again.
Great to see you as well. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. My pleasure. Online, you've made a big jump there, yes?
Sure, yeah. This was something that the people kind of had been calling for a while. Folks that lived out of state that want to, still read about the history, read about nostalgic topics, find out what's currently going on in the area. And also folks that maybe didn't get a chance to get their hands on a copy because they tend to run out pretty quickly, even though we print 13,000 issues. So we just wanted to make sure everybody that wanted to have access to the publication had it. So now we upload monthly issues onto our website, gumagazine.com, and you're welcome to cycle through it. And each issue is up for a period of 2 months. So for example, right now we have January and February on the website. Next month we'll have February and March, etc.
And it's pretty easy. All you have to do, I was just on that site, and you just kind of register, right?
Right, yeah. You just offer your name, your email address, and it's a free membership that we have. So that's all it takes. Doesn't cost a penny, and you'll never miss an issue.
For those who aren't familiar with the Greater Utica Magazine, it goes back to what year, Brad?
2014. We're actually getting ready to complete our 10th year publishing the magazine, which is unbelievable. Time has flown by so much, but through the support of the people, we've been able to keep it going. So we're really grateful for that.
And it was your dad's idea, was it not?
Yeah, we kind of all came up with it together. It was my father, my brother Nick, and myself. My dad was the one that had kind of all the nostalgic knowledge because he grew up in the area from back in the day. But he also had an archive of historic photos that he would publish. He would post them on Facebook, actually. He had a public page on Facebook that he would, just for fun, he would post pictures, and the whole community kind of rallied behind this page. He accumulated something like 10,000 followers on this page, and we realized there was a demand for these kind of things, so we decided to put our skills together, and that's what we came up with.
And for those who haven't read the magazine, it's a combination of history, nostalgia, current events.
Correct. Yeah, we're actually we've made a conscious effort over the past year or so to get more involved in what's going on currently, because history is being made every day. Yeah. History isn't just what's already occurred; it's happening right in front of us. So we're trying to take more of that mindset that history comes in all forms, it comes at all times, and we're trying to cover it all.
Yeah. The current issue, the one that's on the stands now, what's the lead story in that?
It's the history of Indium Corporation. It's mostly the founding of Indium Corporation, all the way back from the discovery of the element indium itself in 1863, up until the company's impact on World War II, which was substantial. They're one of a handful of companies in Utica that earned the Army-Navy E Award for excellence in production, manufacturing. Just an incredible company with an incredible history.
Did you do the article yourself?
I did,
yeah.
Yes, yep. With the help of Indium Corporation themselves, I believe Rick Short is the corporate vice president, if I'm not mistaken. He helped me a lot. Also, obviously did my own independent research as well. Just a fascinating story, honestly, a company that's really having an incredible global impact to this day in ways that many of us don't realize. They affect our everyday lives, and we often don't realize that it's happening.
What is indium? It's an ore, correct?
Indium is actually a chemical element. It's included in the periodic table, so those of us who took high school chemistry might be familiar with it. But it was discovered accidentally by two German scientists in the 1860s, 1863, I believe was the year. And after they discovered it, they kind of just wrote about their discovery and then never revisited it again. And for the next 60 or 70 years, scientists were never able to find a commercial use for this because it's very, very difficult to extract from the earth. Rick Short actually kind of described it as indium is sort of has the consistency of dust you would find in your carpet. So to separate that from ore is very difficult to do. But this gentleman, William Stanley Murray, who was a Colgate graduate, he was a chemical engineer, brilliant guy. He was actually hired by Oneida Limited, the silverware company. And they tasked him with coming up with some kind of a formula to make non-tarnishable silverware. And so he began experimenting with rare metals to coat the silverware to prevent it from corroding. Mm. And so indium was one that he happened to come across. And when he reached out to labs all across the world to try to find a large quantity of it, only 1 gram existed in the entire world. Not existed, but was actually extracted and was able to use for an experiment. So then he set out on this journey to find where indium could be found. And that called for the testing of thousands and thousands of samples. Finally, he was able to locate a large quantity in Arizona. And then he had to develop the process, which nobody had done, to extract commercial amounts of it. And then when he was able to do that, he developed all kinds of patents for those processes and coating silver with it. And ultimately, they got the Army Navy E Award because the Indium Corporation of America, which is what he founded in 1934, they developed the process of coating aircraft bearings with indium, which made them, they could fly faster, fly longer, carry heavier loads, played a tremendous impact in our nation winning the war in World War II. So that's why they got the Army Navy E Award, and just an amazing company.
And they've got, what, 2 locations in our area? They're down off the arterial. They got a plant.
They actually have a corporate headquarters behind Lowe's in New Hartford. They have a facility on Robinson Road in Clinton. Then they also have their State Street location, or not State Street, I apologize, Lincoln Ave location in West Utica. And then they also have a facility in the Utica Business Park. So they actually have 4 facilities here. I believe around the world they have 15 total in nations like Singapore and Malaysia and China and just everywhere, all across the world.
I've got a couple more questions to ask you about indium. We'll do that right after the break. Brad Velardi is our guest. Short break, right back. And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. We're talking about the Indium Corporation. We're going to talk about some other things too, but Brad Velardi is our guest. The Indium Corporation is the feature in this month's issue of Greater Utica magazine. They've kind of kept a low profile in Utica, have they not? I mean, this is a great story that you did, but big employer, great reputation, but I don't know, you don't think of indium, or at least I don't think of indium.
Sure. Well, it's kind of unless you really dive into the topic like I did for the story, it's really kind of difficult to understand what it is exactly that they do. Mm-hmm. And I'm somebody who barely passed chemistry, and I had a tutor, so I mean, it can be
and
pretty
I didn't take chemistry, so.
All right, well, fair enough. But yeah, it can be complicated stuff. So I think to kind of get the word out to the public and put it in layman's terms is a challenging thing to do. But this year they're celebrating their 90th anniversary, so I think it's important to them that people understand the legacy of the company. And so I was happy to be a part of that.
You said that during the break you were telling me that indium is used in mobile devices?
Sure, yeah, mobile devices, all different kinds of technology manufacturing that we utilize every day. So they really do genuinely have a global impact.
I'll read the article completely after the show, but do you get into their employment numbers around here?
Well, there's actually going to be a part 2 to the story in the April issue where we'll bring you up to the current day. This particular version stops around 1950. So we get to about the end of World War II, the opening of the Lincoln Ave facility, which they still operate today, and we'll take you to the present day in the April issue.
We should point out to people that Greater Utica Magazine is free.
Yes, sir.
And it's full color and available really all throughout the area. I'll get mine at Adirondack Bank, and I see it all over the place.
Sure.
You also wrote an article I think you wrote the article about the mills in New York mills.
Yes.
Yeah. Good response to that?
Oh, incredible response. The people from New York mills have tremendous loyalty to the village. And it's no wonder why. I mean, after conducting a lot of the research, it's just an incredible story and an incredibly close-knit community, a community that was formed around those mills, which is why it adopted the name New York Mills. I speak a little bit in the story about how a community kind of forms its identity, and rarely do you see a village's identity so much attached to the manufacturing that it adopts its actual name. But that's the case with New York Mills, and it's a sort of an up and down history. I have a part 2 that I published in the March issue where we talk about strikes. There's 2 major strikes that took place.
That was a bitter strike.
Very bitter strikes. And in part 1, I speak about the Walcotts and the Campbells, the 2 families that built the organization itself. And they had a very paternalistic relationship with the citizens. They really looked after them. They built churches, built all kinds of civic institutions. They formed a real community and really had a personal relationship with the people. In the early 1900s, a company named A.B. Juilliard out of New York City took it over. It became very corporate. They were very disconnected from the people. Unfortunately, the factory workers were suffering a lot of mistreatment, and mostly the Polish immigrant community formed a textile workers union within the village, and they fought back, and they got the benefits that they were looking for. So it's an up and down history, it's a checkered history, but all in all, one that the people take a lot of pride in.
Juilliard, that's the Juilliard music fame, right?
Correct, yep, same family.
The mill buildings, most of them are still around and repurposed.
Sure. What's referred to today as Mill Number 3, which used to house the fitness mill, was actually Mill Number 4. But the original Mill Number 3 burned many years ago. So that mill's gone. Mill Number 4 was turned into Mill Number 3, completely repurposed.
That's the one that's at the end of Main Street near Burstone Road,
Burstone Road, correct,
okay.
Yes. And then Mill Number 2 still stands. Mill Number 1 still stands up at close to the junction of Whitesboro Street, up in that area. And I believe Mill Number 2 doesn't stand anymore. They built a senior living facility that is an exact replica, just about an exact replica of that building right on Main Street. So yeah, there's still a big part of the history that remains there.
I think about other mills that we had in the Utica city limits, and those buildings still stand,
They
and
do.
have been repurposed. This was a mill town.
Sure.
And in fact, I think at one point it was called the Nick Goods K-N-I-T, knit goods, capital of the world here.
Correct.
In Utica.
Right.
And so you had them on Broad Street in Utica, you had them on State Street. I mean, you had them over where the Boilermaker finishes.
Sure, Court Street.
Yeah, they were just everywhere.
They were, and I actually did one on a few of the major knitting mills in Utica. Another story that got a lot of response from the people because, you know, many of their ancestors, relatives worked in these factories, and it's kind of how, and my family included, how we kind of got our feet wet in the area and got established, and you know, so it's a big part of all of our family history.
And I don't know why my mind just switched to this while you were talking. Did you ever do anything on the old, I think you did, the old Savage Arms building that burnt down recently?
Yes, yep. Yeah. My father actually did the story on Savage Arms. That's another one of the companies that won the Army-Navy E Award, had a tremendous impact on World War II. I believe World War I as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I know I've read a lot about World War II, not about World War I. I'm not too familiar with that, but they were making at Savage Arms, which later became Remington Rand, I believe, and then Charlestown at the end, and then it became vacant and then burnt down. But when it was Savage Arms, they were making 50 caliber machine guns over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thompson submachine guns, things like that.
Sure, yeah.
Big employer.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other big employer we had in Utica was General Electric. Did you ever do anything on General Electric?
I have not. We've spoken about that a few times when I've been on the program, and I'm just waiting for the right time, I guess, for that one. Because like I say, I want to do that one properly. I know that one means a lot to people, so I want to make sure that we execute
well, I was thinking of GE
well as possible.
When you talked about people who worked in the knit goods. They're old, but they actually did work in those mills. They're still here. And there's a lot of GE people that live in the area. And of course, GE had two. They had the military end of it, and then they had the civilian end of it that built transistor radios.
Right.
I just wrote something for the Daily Sentinel where I touched on it a little bit. Their plant was over by Culver Ave, and more transistor radios were made by GE here in Utica, New York than anywhere in the world. Hard to believe.
It is, but to circle back to Indium Corporation, their development of various solders actually allowed for the mass production of the transistor. So that's another way that they had an incredible impact, and we'll touch on that in part 2 of the story. But so anybody who says that history wasn't made in Utica just doesn't know the history, you know? Yeah.
Brad Velardi is our guest. He's from Greater Utica Magazine. We're talking about some of the articles in this month's magazine, and we'll talk to Brad more. Short break, right back. And welcome back, everybody. We're talking with Brad Velardi. Brad is with Greater Utica Magazine, does a lot of writing for it, distributes it around the area, and is a very big proponent of our area. And one of the things that I've read about Greater Utica Magazine is hockey. Are you a hockey fan?
I'm a local hockey fan.
Yeah.
I don't watch much NHL, but I do follow the Comets. I follow Utica College.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot to be proud of. When I started doing more research on local hockey history, I just became fascinated with it and how important it is to the people in this area.
Well, you know, it does have a great history. I remember as a kid going up to Clinton and watching the Clinton Comets. And I think that's one of the things that Rob Esch has done, smart, to not forget the history of hockey here. And the history of hockey in our area is Clinton Comet history, and he incorporated that in the Utica Comets. Done a good job with it. He's been very supportive of some of those former Clinton Comets. You'll see him at the Utica Comet games.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do see some of them. Dave Armstrong
Yeah.
is one that you come across pretty frequently if you go to the games. He's just been smart in embracing history in general and all the endeavors that are tied to Mohawk Valley Garden and the Utica Comets. So I just think that it's our greatest asset as a community. So anybody who's willing to capitalize on our history, I think is making the right decision.
And now, next door to the auditorium, you've got the Nexus Center. You wrote about the Nexus Center.
We haven't written about the Nexus Center yet, but that story will be coming
Okay.
at some point this year. There's a lot to cover as far as hockey's concerned. We just got a chance to finally cover Gary Heenan and the Pioneers a couple months ago, which was a great honor because they kind of set the stage for the resurrection of the auditorium. But yeah, between Utica College and the Comets, the energy that is now down in that area. And I grew up as a kid in the 90s, early 2000s, and there really wasn't a whole lot going on down there. You would go to the Aud and the concessions were pretty average, and we didn't have professional hockey for a number of years. But between the Utica College, Utica University program, and the Utica Comets, there's a whole new energy going on down there.
Gary Heenan and what was then Utica College really kept hockey alive in our area. And then when Rob Esch came in and brought AHL hockey here, then it was and I think that, I'll be interested in your opinion, I kind of think that things changed in our area once we got that hockey team. I don't want to put too much on this, but you couldn't find a lot of people saying a lot of good things about the area.
Sure.
And then Esch came in, started the Comets back up and AHL, and I don't know, people started talking more positive.
I completely agree. The community, I think, needs an anchor, some kind of anchor to rally around, some type of point of pride where they can say that this is ours and this represents us. And I think a sports franchise goes a long way in doing that. You see in cities like Buffalo, there's really not much else that most people know about Buffalo, but you know about the Buffalo Bills, you know about the Buffalo Sabres, and you can see in these smaller communities how the people rally around these teams because there's such a point of pride. And that's exactly what happened with the Comets. Once the Comets were established, we said, hey, we have a professional franchise, that's putting us on the map, and that's something we can be proud of.
And look at SU.
Yeah, right, yeah, absolutely, same thing.
You mentioned that you're working, I thought you'd already done something on the Nexus Center, but that's a beautiful building.
It is.
Beautiful facility.
It is a beautiful facility, and it's opened the doors again to bring people from in this area who otherwise would have never stopped by, between the hockey tournaments and I believe they do soccer tournaments, and so it brings the youth in. They get to see what this area is all about, and it's just been a great thing.
What time of the month for your monthly publication? What time of the month does it come out, a new issue?
New issues come out typically the last couple days of the previous month. So, for example, the March issue came out on February 29th, February 28th, and then we have them all distributed within 2 or 3 days, and they're out there for the people.
Yeah. The articles that you're looking forward to doing, the articles you got in the planning stages, what are they?
Well, I actually just published a story, I shouldn't say we published a story in the March issue about a gentleman who is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, Irving Baxter. And he actually won 2 gold medals in Paris, which is where this year's Summer Olympics are. That was back in 1900. And I have a whole list of people that have a Summer Olympics connection to the Mohawk Valley, and I look forward to publishing those folks. I'm doing a story in April about the Women's International Tournament that's coming to the Utica Auditorium, so I'll be covering that, looking forward to that. Continuing the Indium series, I mean, I look forward to all the stories, honestly.
There's no shortage of stories, is there, Brad?
No, and every time I feel like I've kind of come to the end, I out of nowhere just find 5 or 6 more, and those often feed off each other and lead me to other topics. So,
I know one of your great resources for research is the United County History Center.
Correct. Yes. In fact, with Indium Corporation, I was in a little bit of a bind. I went down to the History Center the Saturday before the magazine was published. So luckily, I was able to come up with something there. And they had a particular article that I was looking for. So.
And a lot of pictures on that Indium story.
Sure, yeah. Indium provided a lot of those for us. I got some of them from the History Center. But yeah, I mean, believe it or not, there isn't a ton of photos to be found on Indium, but we were able to come up with some good ones, I thought, and it brought the article to life.
Yeah, we've only got about 30 seconds, but what's the biggest reaction you've ever got to a story in Greater Utica Magazine?
Well, one of the best I would have to say is probably one that my dad published several years ago on the Screaming Eagles. Another one that he did on the Soldiers and Sailors Monument at Oneida Square. I mentioned the knitting mills in Utica, knitting mills in New York mills. Anything that ties people to something that they actually got to live themselves.
Boy, that Screaming Eagles, that was something. Boy, I remember that marching group, all African Americans. They were in their uniforms and combat boots, marched in all the parades, including Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. What a great organization that was.
Absolutely amazing.
Talking about great things. Great guy. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Back at you.
That's going to do it for us this week. We'll be back next week to do it all again. Don't forget cnyhomepage.com. There's a lot of good stuff there as well. Until next time, take care of yourself, everybody.